Hello, friends! Yes, yes. Hello, friends! Welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. Live stream here, and today I'm going to be building a live polling app with feathersjs, mongoose, and Vue.js. Basically, I'm going to be building an app where you, my subscribers and viewers, can suggest or vote on new videos for me to make. So without further ado, here's this. Sweet. All right. So this is going to be kind of super open-ended. I don't have a big long checklist like I have in past videos. I'm just going to kind of code on stuff and read docs and kind of make it happen. It might not be that pretty to watch. Maybe it will be. But let's do it. So I am going to be using feathersjs. feathersjs is an open source REST and real-time API layer for modern applications. It's built on top of Express, and basically you could generate a CRUD app in a single command. So the thing you saw me build over like 2 hours in past videos, we can do in a single command. And I'm going to do that because I don't have the time to build it from scratch. So let's use it. If we look at the guide, you can... the basics. Getting started. Oh, I need to plug in my computer just a second. Cool. Whoa. They're doing it from scratch there. The generator, that's what I want. So under basics and then generator CLI, they have a command line tool where you can just generate a new app. So let me do that. So currently I'm in this poll directory. I wonder if it's going to create a directory after I generate it. I don't know. Let's do it. I'll make a directory. Let's just call it server. And inside that folder, let's generate the app. So feathers generate app. Go. Name. This is live poll. Description. A live polling app. Source folder. npm. So this is what's cool about feathers.js. Out of the box, they support real-time via socket.io. So I could have a poll where people are voting and adding options, and everyone on the page would see it happening in real time. And that is also supported as a REST API. So I'm going to do both of those. It's happening. We're waiting for it. And there it is. Cool. Cool. So it did generate it in the folder that I ran the command in. And let's go ahead and start it up. See what we get. npm start. So now we have a Feathers application listening on localhost 3030, and when you go to it, you get an app. Sweet. But by default, it doesn't have any routes or anything like that, so let's add some of those. Before I do that, I am actually going to add authentication, and it's just as easy as this. Feathers generate authentication. We could do username and password. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to do social auth with Google. And this uses passport.js under the hood. We'll call our users. And I'm going to be using mongoose, which is a ODM, an object document mapper for Mongo database. So we'll do that. Sounds good to me. And while we do that, we can take a look at authentication in the guide. So basic OAuth. Let's take a look. So I'm gonna do it with Google. Don't go there. Cool. Yeah. So that should have done it. And then I'm gonna go ahead. Do I have Atom open? Yes, I do. So in this folder, this server directory is the actual feathersjs app that got generated, and it creates this config. And inside of here, I can actually configure all the things. So by default, authentication is going to use JSON Web Tokens. You can set up your JWT stuff. I'll do that a little bit later, but the main thing I care about right now is the client ID and client secret. So for this, I'm going to have to go to the Google Developer Console and set up a new client ID and secret so that when people log in, it uses basically the key and secret that I create in the Google console. So I'll do that. Before I do that, I'm going to install .env. So I could go look that up and then just type it in here like this, but then all of you out there could see my ID and secret and then steal my users if you wanted to. And I don't want that. So I am going to set up .env. And this is just a basic Node app. So once it's generated and going, I can just do an npm install. I'm going to do .env. So this is a package that will let you load environment variables into the environment. And those environment variables will be secretly hidden, so you cannot see them. Or malicious people. You're not malicious. You're my viewer, right? You're great. You're great. Cool. So I added .env. I'm just going to create this .env file. And inside of here, I can put my environment variables. So I want I'm going to call it, I can call it whatever I want. So I'm going to call this Google Client ID. I'll go get that. And then I also need Google, Google Client Secret. Secret, cool. And I'm gonna go get that. I'll put these in here. And in this config, you can actually put an environment variable and we'll actually bring those in. So right here, I'm gonna do Google underscore client ID. And then right here, I'm gonna do Google underscore client secret. Cool. Scopes are essentially what you're asking for when you do social auth, and the main thing I want from the user is really just their email and probably their name. Main thing is so that people will log in and you can't vote more than once, or I can see what you vote for, that kind of thing. And maybe eventually this could be a platform where you watch videos and different things like that, but you have your login, so the things you do as you are you, if that makes sense. I don't know, it's late. I'm just making an app. That's all this is. Cool, so that's there. And I am going to go get a client ID and secret, but while I do that, I'll leave something for you to... I'm not going to let you see me while I do it because then you could steal it, and I don't want that to happen. So let's go on YouTube and find a video of puppies. Funny puppies compilation. Cool. So while that's happening, I am going to go over here where you can't see me and create my client ID and secret. I think I will show how to do it, but once I create it, I'm gonna hide that from you. Google here, and I'll show you while I do it. So we'll pause those puppies for now. So I want the Google Developer Console. This thing. In just a second. Make sure nothing precious pops up. Cool. So yeah, I don't think I can show this to you without revealing anything secret. So just look it up. Look up how to create a client ID and secret in the Google Developer Console. And once you do that, you'll get your secret keys. I'm going to go ahead and play these precious puppies while I do this. Cool. And I've got it now. So I'm going to take my code over here so you can't see me. Isn't this great? I'm hiding stuff from you guys. This is fun. Okay, Okay, so grab the client ID, throw that in my .env, grab the client secret, throw that in there, save that, close that file, and then basically never open it again on the live stream, or you could steal my stuff. I will say you can revoke it, so if it does get released and somebody finds it, you can revoke it and create a new token, but I don't want to have to go through that. And here, how can I? There's like no easy way for me to show you this without revealing. Let's see what I can do. If I do that, okay, cool. I'll just do that. So in here, after like at the top of the screen is my client ID and secret, but down here you put authorized redirect URIs. And right now, because I'm in development, it's going to be http://localhost 3030, because that's what feathersjs runs on, and then auth/Google/callback, I believe. It'll tell us if it doesn't work. So I'm going to set that up, and then after I save that, we can attempt to log in using my Feathers app that I just created. That's my break timer. Gonna take a quick stretch, reach into the sky, look away from the screen. Cool. So yeah, so over here, all that's good to go. I don't think I need to mess with anything. I will show you around the Feathers app real quick. So if you go on the source directory, all kinds of cool stuff. If you look at authentication, this is what was generated for me. And it's using JSON Web Tokens, using the Google strategy, and then this config.google is essentially this right here. So this brings in the client ID and secret. And yeah, I think one thing I do need to do is in app.js, which is the same entry point you would see in most Express.js apps that you've seen. I'm going to bring my .env into here, so that way it actually reads my information from that secret file that I created. So I'm just going to bring in .env right here. And then we will just config it. So if you do a .env.config, this essentially loads those environment variables that you put into that secret file into your environment, so when feathers.js goes to read this file, stuff actually exists. Cool. One thing I'm going to do is add nodemon, so that way the server automatically restarts when I change stuff. So --save -dev nodemon. And then in here, well, let's wait for it to add nodemon. There it is. And now right here, I'm going to add a dev script. It's going to be nodemon src. And if you didn't know this about Node.js, if you try to run a script pointed in a folder, it will look for index.js. So this is the entry point into the Feathers.js app, and you'll notice it requires the app file, which has all the other stuff loaded into it, listens on a port, and starts it up. So let's try it out. If I do npm run dev, warning, Mongo client is no longer necessary in Mongoose 5. Please remove it. Interesting. Well, that says in mongoose.js, use Mongo client true. Is it saying I don't need that? So I think it's saying I can just remove this? Really? Let's see what happens. Kill it, restart it. Maybe it worked. Okay, cool. Cool. But the way authentication works is it sets up a route at auth/whichever strategy you chose. The other thing is it generated this user model, so it's actually going to be inserting users into my database. So right now it's just storing the Google ID of every user that logs in, but I also want to store the email, and this is going to be required. Required true. And I'll take a step back and explain what this thing is. So Mongo is a document store. It's a NoSQL database. So in previous videos, you've seen me use Postgres. This is a SQL database. And when I was working with that database, I had to predefine all of the tables that I was working with and all of their relationships. With Mongo, you don't have to do that. It's essentially, think of it like just a bucket where you can throw JSON objects. But Mongoose is a library where you can basically make it a bit more precise rather than just allowing anything to be thrown into your database. So this schema basically defines what I want to allow to be inserted into the Mongo database. So you can think of this users model as like a users table in SQL. And right here, I'm basically saying it's like an email column. It's an email property on the JSON, and then also a Google ID, and then I think maybe I'll add display name. Cool. Both of those will be required. Do I need anything else? I don't think so. Let's see what happens. So my server is running. There are the puppies. Server's running. If I go to localhost 3030/auth/Google, it redirects me. And I get to choose an account that I'm going to be logging in with. I'll choose this one. Something went wrong. Let's look in our console. Error, passback control. I'm hoping that it's reading my .env. So it did get a callback. Kind of don't know how to debug this, but let's take a look. So implementing OAuth with feathers, setting up an OAuth provider. Custom auth strategies. Server authentication. One thing I do want to do, because so you'll notice in here I want to store the email and I want to store the display name. One thing I need to do is in I believe it's a hook, basically before the user is inserted, I have access to all of the social data after the user clicked like allow login with Google, and I want to grab their email, grab their display name so that I can insert it into the database as well. Let's see though. I'm just going to Google it real quick. feathersjs, OAuth, login, save email, something like that. Let's go to Google. Does not save filled email. Let's see what this GitHub issue has to say. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Cool. So we need a customize profile function in our user hook. Let's do that. So we're in here, and this is before create and before update. So I'm going to say a function customize Google profile. And I believe this gives you a context. Let's see. No idea. Let's log context and then just return context. But we're going to put this on before create and also before update. Let's see what happens. And I'm just going to log like here. So let's throw that over there. Let's throw our browser over there, and let's try to log in again. So localhost 3030 auth/Google. It did not log. You know what? I'm going to pull up a previous project because I've done this before. I just cannot figure it out right now. Go into that folder, go into that folder. You can't see what I'm doing right now. Go into that folder, go in here, go into that folder. Actually, I'm just going to open this up with Adam. You can see this project. It's nothing special. So this is a feathersjs app, but I have it configured with GitHub login. Let's look at our, and I have a ton of services, but let's look at our user service, user hooks. Cool. So I have this handle GitHub function, and I'm calling that in create and in update. Cool. And inside of that, I should get access to the context. That makes sense to me. Interesting. It's not even getting called at all. Let's see what else is in here. So if I look in this authentication file, setting up the config, authenticating with the strategy. Let's see if I'm doing anything special. Oh, not that. I'm doing anything special with the authentication file. Yeah, so I remember I added this special verifier that basically doesn't reinsert a user if they have already been inserted. This is fun. Live stream, you can just watch me fall flat on my face and not even figure this thing out. But that is software development. It's not all happy times. Let's take a look though. So got our auth there. Got that going. We are, let's see. Oh, wait. No. I was about to say, does the .env need to be in the source folder? It doesn't. We are configuring the .env. I wish I had a better error message. Error. Passback control. I'm just going to Google this, see if I can find anything. feathersjs, Google OAuth, passback control error. Here's an issue. Well, it's with the actual Passport GitHub library that it's using under the hood. Passback control. You must enable Google Plus API. Oh, you know, that might be it, because I don't think so. Right now, in the Google Developer Console, I only have not much enabled, but on here I'm requesting profile and OpenID, which means I also need to enable Google Plus API, because that's where it gets the social profile from. Okay, let's do that. So Google Developer Console, and again, I can't show you this because I have a risk of displaying sensitive information. Okay, enable APIs and services. Let's search for Google Plus API. Enable. It's asking me to create a project. Oh, actually. Let's see. APIs and services. Failed to load. What? What is happening? Something's going on. I'm sorry, guys. If anybody's watching. Actually, let me pull up the live chat. Don't have that open. We'll go there. We'll go there. We'll go there. Cool. Pretty sure nobody's watching. That's a good thing. Google Plus, please. Google Plus API. You have insufficient permissions to enable or disable service for this project. Oh, I think I'm on the wrong project. Coding Garden. Here we go. Google Plus. There we go. Enable. It's enabling. It's spinning. Cool. So that's enabled. And if I go to credentials, that's under the same thing. Let's see what happens. This might not have been it, but I think it's definitely something that needed to happen. So let's kill that, restart that. And let's try it. Go. That's better. Yes, okay, it's working now. So, whew, cool. Okay, so this thing that's logging here is the context that I was logging in the user hook. So basically I want to say if context.google will do something, that means that they're attempting to log in with Google. Otherwise, you return the context. And the way feathersjs works is, so everything is like pre-generated for you. But the idea of a hook is you can basically do something before some action happens on your API. So for my case, this is the user's service, user's endpoint. And so when we're logging people up, we're creating a user or searching for an existing user. And so basically this function we're writing is going to run before the user gets created so that we can get access to their email and full name and stuff like that. So here I'm just going to log context.google and return the context. And if you look at this error, the error we got is user's validation failed, display name is required, and email is required. So the code I'm about to write is actually going to add the email and the display name from the profile that we got back from Google. So now that I'm logging Google, it should be a little bit easier to find what we're looking for. Let's try it. Maybe context.google is not a thing. Oh, context.data.google. Cool, that's it. If context.data.google, we're going to log context.data.google. And there it is. It's a bunch of stuff. But in here somewhere is the email. So emails, that's going to have us an email, and it has display name. So here's what I want to do. I want to say context.data. What did I call it in the model? I called it display underscore name. So in the hook, I'm going to say dot display underscore name equals context.data.google dot display name. And then context.data.email is going to be context.data.google.emails at 0 maybe. I don't know. Let's log dot emails. Wait, what? Oh, maybe it's just email. Email. And I might get lucky and just grab the first one, but my guess is it's probably an object with a property. Oh, I think it's dot. Okay, let's just log this again. I'm confusing myself. This is probably very confusing for you too. Like, what the hell is going on? Okay, so dot profile. Okay, so this is, let's just grab the profile. So like const profile equals context.data.google, and we are going to destructure it. So profile is a property on context.data.google. So here I should be able to say profile.displayname, and then here email is going to be profile.emails at 0. But let's log this because it actually is an object. So we're going to log profile.emails. Let's just log the whole thing. And we're not going to log that anymore. Okay. There. Dot value. So emails at 0 dot value. This is the one. Okay, we went through all of that. How long have I been streaming now? Wow, 32 minutes. Okay. Regardless, now when they log in with Google, we are going to grab the profile that we got from Social Auth. We're going to grab their display name, grab their email, and by putting it on data, this is actually what's going to get inserted into the user document store. So they'll have an email, they'll have a display name, and then it automatically grabs the Google ID. Okay, let's see what happens. Let's kill it, restart it. Go. That worked. And how do I know it worked? So I have this tool called Mongotron. It's an app that lets you visually look at the Mongo databases, yeah, on your computer. And so I created this live poll database, collections, users, and if I look at it, there they are. That's the user that just logged in. Cool. So just like that, with a little bit of work, we have login with Google on our app. Cool. So that's great and all. We'll keep it going. But now what I want to do is actually create some resources to essentially CRUD against. I think I'll add some logic later that basically has an admin user, but our polls, basically we need questions. So you can ask a question, and then you can have add options to that question that can then have votes on them. So I think we're going to have 3 different document stores. We're going to have the question document store, the options document store that link to a question ID, and then a votes document store that link to a specific option ID. Let's do it. So feathersjs service. So I'm generating a new service. What kind of service is it? It's going to be mongoose. What's the name? So first we're going to do questions. Where should the server be? So where should the path be? /questions. So this is essentially going to create a RESTful API at /questions. Does the service require authentication? Yes. You must be logged in to ask a question. But this command is done. I can now make a post request to create a question. I can now make a get. Let's try it out. So like in the browser, if I now go to localhost 3030/questions, we get back unauthorized because I'm not logged in. Cool. I'll have to set that up. But let's update the questions model. So when you generate a new service, it creates models, and then we can update those models. So let's think about what a question has. So it definitely has text, because that's going to be like, what video should I make next? I think that's it. Yeah, that's good enough for me. So that's all we need for questions. Now let's generate another service for question options. We're going to use mongoose again. Require authentication, yes. Okay, and this one we will update because a question is going to have, well, an option will have text that is required. So what video do you want me to make next is the question. The option, one of them will be Vue.js. But this is also going to need a question ID. And the type is going to be an object ID, and it's going to be required. But let's look at the mongoose docs for association. So essentially, Mongo by itself, you cannot associate two different document stores, but with mongoose, it allows you to do that. So basically, I can say that question ID links to an ID in questions. So let's do that. So I'll look up, let's just look up the, mongoosejs.com, read the docs. Let's look at models, well, more like schemas, because we're defining the schema. Looking for object ID. We do want it's basically an association. Populate. This is what I want. So when you're defining the schema, I could basically say option ID, or actually we could call it option, and the type is going to be object ID, and then the reference will be the name of the store for questions. So type schema.types.objectID, and ref instead is just going to be questions. And I believe if we look over here, this is defined as questions, so that should match up. Instead of calling it question ID, we can just call it question, because when we later on request it, we can populate this with the question from the question document store. Yeah, that's about it. So when we add an option, it has text, it has question, and then I think we'll also add a user ID. Well, we'll add a user, and that is going to be very similar. It's going to be an object ID, but the ref is going to be users right there. Question options, ref, users. So the main idea is, I think initially only I will be able to ask questions, but then anybody can add options to it. And so whoever adds an option, I'll store like what the user is, who the user is that is adding that option. Cool. Yeah, looks good for question options. And now we need option votes. Generate a service. Mongoose, please. Name of the service is going to be option votes. So for any given option, it can have multiple votes. Require authentication. Okay, so now we have option votes. Let's work on that model. So a vote is going to have first an option. So just like this, it's going to be a ref to the option table. So we'll say option. Well, no, yeah. So option, and this is going to be on the question options model. So over here, the model name is question options. So that'll link up there. And you'll also have a user. So the person, so this is for votes. So whatever user is voting on that specific option. And by storing the user here, then a user can't vote for something more than once. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Excuse me. I'm very burpy today. Let's look at events. Cool. So I think that's it for our models. Now it's time to start inserting stuff, I believe. We are gonna have to update like the before insert of votes and stuff like that. But let's start testing this out. So I'm gonna use Postman to test this out, and I do believe that, well, maybe not, but like when I logged in with Google, did it store a cookie? It did. Well, it stored a JSON web token. So I want that, and I'm going to use this inside of Postman. So create a new tab. On headers, I believe the key is authorization, and the value is going to be bearer, and then that thing, don't look. And then we're going to just attempt to get HTTP localhost / questions. Go. It's working. So this is our API. We're making a request against /questions. We're authorized because I pulled the token that got generated when we did Google auth. Later on, when I build a front end, we're actually going to store that in the browser, so when the front end makes requests, it'll use that token. But right now, there are no questions in my system, so let's try to create a question. So we're going to do a post. The body is going to be, I'm going to send some JSON, so raw JSON. And if you remember, a post has a text, and what we're going to try to post is, what video should I make next? Send. That worked. Why did it work? Oh, okay. I need to update the model. So I was expecting it not to work because well, actually, I want to associate a user like who asked the question. I think initially I'm going to be the only one asking the question, but I still want to associate it. So throw this here. Now let's try to create the same question. Oh, required true. And actually, I'm going to add that to all of these refs, because you cannot insert it without having the ref. So that's there. Try to insert, break. Path user is required. So now we need to create a hook. So before we allow the creation of this question, we're going to set user to be the currently logged in user. So in our hooks, in our services for questions, we're going to look at the questions hooks, and basically before create, we want to set the user to be the currently logged in user. So I'll say set user. We'll create this function. So here I'll have a function set user, takes in the context, returns the context, but we should have access to, I believe, context.params.user. Let's just log context.params. See what we get. So when I post this, context.params authenticated true, headers, payload user. So context.params.user._id. That should be the ID of the currently logged in user. And it is. So what we want to do is in the set user function, we'll say context.data.user equals this. So now, before it inserts it, it's going to set the user to be the currently logged in user. Let's try it now. Send. Boom, it worked. And now the user that created that has their ID there. And the cool thing about that is if somebody tries to spoof it, right? If they try to send us user and then like somebody else's user ID, it's going to get overwritten in that route. So no spoofing. Okay. Yeah, it's great. I like that. Here's the thing, though. We can reuse this function on pretty much all of the routes where we have that that user field in the model. We want to use the same function. I guess the other thing is if you're updating a question, the user should be the user updating it. If you're patching it, if you're removing it. Later on, I'm going to add only the user that created that question can create or update it. And actually, I might just go ahead and do that. Let me look at, it's like feathersjs restrict to owner. For whatever reason, DuckDuckGo isn't that good at searching for feathers.js. Yeah, I believe there's a separate authentication module you can bring in that gives you a hook restrict to owner. Or it's like authentication utils or something like that. Let's see. Let's just search Google. Feathers authentication hooks. That's what I want. Query with current user. Restrict to owner. Restrict to owner is meant to be used as a before hook. It only allows the user to retrieve or modify resources that are owned by them. Cool. So by adding this, now only the user that created a question will be able to update it or delete it. Cool. So I'm going to install this package. So I'm in my server folder. It's installed. And then now I can use this in my function here. So const hooks equals require feathers authentication hooks. And then we want to do hooks.restrict to owner. We'll do this for update. And actually, yeah, so when you're updating or patching or removing, no need to set the user because the user has already been set. But the ID, the owner field is going to be the user column. And the ID field, what is the ID field? The ID field on your user object. So the default is _ID, so we can leave that off because by default in Mongoose the ID is _ID. The owner field, the ID field for a user on your resource. So on the right now we're on the questions resource. The owner column is user. So that will now restrict only the person that created this question can update it, patch it, or remove it. Break timer! Ugh, this is my longer break. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go grab a drink. Let me leave you with some puppies before I go. Puppies are fun, and I'm back, and I have a lime LaCroix. Actually, let me see. Does it show up weird because of the green screen? Yeah. Well, does it? Weird. Cool. Okay. Also, cool. If anybody's watching, I don't think anybody's watching, but if you're watching, send me a chat. And I've never done this on live stream, but I'm gonna vape. Fun times. Okay, so we have restricted updating the question to the person that defined it. Cool. So we can create questions. Awesome. Now we want to add options to a question. So let's look at first, if we go back to our question options model, it has, excuse me, a user, and we also need to use that same hook function that we created on questions. This one, set user. So I'm going to let's create like a reusable app.hooks. We'll just create it in the source folder. New file, set user dash dot hook.js. And I'm going to close all these windows. I have a ton open. But if we look at question, yes, so I want to pull this function out, put it into set user.hook, and then I'm just going to say module.exports equals set user. And then now I'm going to import that in over here. So const set user equals require go up one directory and then up another directory and then grab the set user.hook. Cool. And then I'm going to use both the set user and the authentication hook in question options here. So we'll bring that same stuff in. So when we're creating, we're going to set the user, and when we're updating, patching, or removing, same thing, restrict to owner. So in options, we'll restrict to owner, restrict to owner, restrict to owner. Cool. So let's try to create an option for the question we just created. What video should I make next? So this ID is what we're going to use. So we're going to say the text. So an option we're going to have is Vue.js, and then the question is going to be that. And so if we post this against question-options, it created it. So you'll notice user got set because it's the currently logged in user. The question ID references a document in the other table, and that's the text of the option. Cool. Now let's vote on an option. So if we go to option votes, and actually let's look at our, that's all the stuff there, and then the votes model has a user and then an option. So we basically need to do the exact same thing in the option votes hooks. All these files look exactly the same. Right now I'm thinking I'll leave them separate, but in the future it might make sense to use the same file for all of these because they're all doing a very similar thing. So again, I want to restrict updating an option, patching and removing it to the currently logged in user. Okay, so we created the Vue.js option, we got back this ID. So now if we want to vote for this option, option-votes, the option is going to be this ID. And so basically we're voting for this option. Go. Path option, oh, so it's not option, option. Go. So that voted for it, and then we can vote for it again and again and again. But I don't want to allow that. I only want a user to be able to make one vote on an option. But let's go ahead and look at Mongotron and see all this data that we've been inserting. Localhost, live poll, collections. So users, that's the user that got logged in. We created this question several times. We were just testing things. I'm going to go ahead and delete some of these. Delete it. Yes. Delete it. Yes. And I believe the last one is, well, let's just make sure. So if I look at question options, the Question is 60.539.8182. Wait, 538? 539? Oh man, I think I deleted the wrong one. Oh well, that's great. But then if we look at option votes, cool. Here's what I want to do though. I want to restrict only one vote per option per user. Right? Yeah. So I'm gonna do feathersjs query model before insert. Create query in before hook in feathers.js for nested object. Interesting. Querying. All official database adapters support a common way for querying, so that's great, but this is the actual service. I want to query essentially inside of a hook. Because before we insert a vote, we want to make sure that that user hasn't already voted for the option they're trying to vote for. Hook dot, so context dot service. The service this hook currently runs on. Let's try it. Because in the before hook of option votes, so I'm gonna have a function that says only one vote. So one vote per option, per user. Let's call it restrict one vote per option. I want it to be descriptive. Well, we're in option votes, so I'll just call it restrict one vote. Takes in the context, returns the context, and we're gonna do this before create of option votes. So it sets the user and then restricts one vote. So in here, it's telling me that I have access to context.service. Let's look at the docs again. Yeah, context.service. And the service has a find. So let's do this. Context.service.find. We want to find where the user is context.params.user. Well, actually, at this point, that we already set the user, so I should be able to do context.data.user, and the option is going to be context.data.option. And I believe when we're, yeah, so basically when we can do this post request once, that's one vote. But if we try to make a post against this again, we then want to check, okay, take the current user, take this option that they're voting for, and see if it actually exists. So let's do that. So we'll find, then we should get back some results, and then let's just log the results. And this is a promise. Actually, I can use async await. Let's do that. So let's await context.find. We'll say const result equals that. Oh, I need to make this async function. And then I'll say, let's just log the result and return the context. Let's see what happens. So in my server logs, those are running. Let's try to post. Ayo! So that works. And basically we can say if we found something, then don't let the insert happen. But let's look again at I'm gonna look at services. Basically, I want to see if there's something for find one. Find does not have to return an array. It can also return an object. The database adapters already do this for pagination. Cool. That's okay though. Regardless, so basically I want to say if result.data.length is greater than 0, meaning they already voted for this thing, I want to return promise.reject. New error. You can only vote for an option once. Cool. Else, just let them vote for that thing. Okay, moment of truth. So now we are going to try to vote for the same option again. General error. You can only vote for an option once. Rock and roll! That's great. That's really great. We can add options. We can create questions. It's a beautiful thing. I think that's it for our back end. Let's kind of work on a front end, see what we can do. Cool. We'll close Postman. And in the terminal, I'm going to generate a Vue.js app. So in here, let's Vue init webpack. Let's call this client. We'll call this live poll client. Yes. Vue router, yes. ESLint, yes. I'm going to use Airbnb. No unit tests, no end-to-end tests. Use npm. Cool. So that created our client folder, and we'll do npm run dev. It's running. Cool. We have ourselves a Vue.js app. Let's work on it. So I'm gonna close all my server-side stuff. And our backend seems ready to go. So we log in with Google, we can create questions, we can add options to questions and delete them, and then we can add votes to options, and users can only vote for an option once. Beautiful. That's exactly what we needed. Let's look at our client. So by default, our app.view has a bunch of styles. I'm going to get rid of that. It's got that image there. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to use Vue.js in this app, so let's set that up. So Vue.js is a CSS component library for Vue.js. They have all kinds of cool UI components. So it uses material design and have cool buttons like that and stuff. I just realized my Flux app is on. That's okay. It's late for me, so I'm going to leave that on. But that's why my screen looks yellowish. Apologies. You can create cool little cars that look like that. It's great. Let's install it. I'm going to respond to this message. Quick start. So we want to install Vue.js. Let's do that. So I'm going to make sure I'm in my client folder, which I am. I'll install Vue.js. Cool. We're going to use Vue.js, and this happens in our main.js. So I'm going to bring in Vue.js right there, add my semicolon, and then right here we're going to use Vue.js. And then I will just import my minified CSS right here. Let's do it right there. So this will enable Vue.js on my app, and then we also need to add material icons and the font, and we can do that in index.html. So I'm going to add that right there. Cool. Now if we look at application layout, look at our predefined layouts, let's find a layout that we're going to use. Take a quick break. I'm tired, it's late. Let's do arc. This is what I want. Let's do it. So all of that is what I want. So I'm going to grab all this template, and we're going to throw this in app.view. We just need to remember to add the router view, that thingy. Get rid of this original template. And then basically, right where the content goes, the content, the toolbar, I see. So right here is the is like the main area of the app. So that's where I want to put my router view. And so now, by default, we should see at localhost 8080. There's our Vue app, and then this is the hello world component being loaded right into the middle, which is a good thing. Cool. By default, this is looking at drawer to say if it's open. So we need a data function that returns an object where drawer is false. So it should be closed when the app loads. No semicolon. Yeah, so when the app loads, drawer is empty or closed. And right quick, if we open our DevTools, we can see that it's complaining about some stuff. And actually, I don't really need this navigation drawer. Let's get rid of it. It's going to be a pretty simple site where you just, you just see the questions being asked. Cool. So in Vue.js, if you're using the Airbnb rules, it has this comma dangle thing where it's an ESLint rule where it wants you to put commas at the end of the last property inside of an object, and I don't like that, so I'm going to update it. If you go to your ESLint RC, down here to the rules section, you can turn that off. So I'm going to say comma dangle, no error, basically. And if we kill it and then restart it, it will not care about that error anymore. Cool. Hard refresh. It's great. Okay, so let's get rid of that hello world component, and we're going to need a login component. Let's just delete that. And we'll add a new file. Let's call it login. Well, let's call it home.view. And basically, if you're not logged in, home view will load, and just looking for my view template. Yeah, the home view will load and show like a login button, so you can log in with Google. So right here, let's just add a div, and let's go to the Vue.js docs. Sorry, Vuetify docs. Let's grab us a nice little button. So UI components button, and we're just gonna grab that button. It's gonna go right there, and it's gonna say login with Google. Cool. And now in our router, instead of hello world, let's call this home. Okay. So now by default, let's close all this stuff. Log in with Google. And let's fix that app.view. So there was the toolbar side icon. We don't need that. We're going to call this coding garden live poll. Cool. So what I want to happen is when I click this, we should open a new window that goes to /Google because we want our server-side login. So let's close all this. In the home component, let's just add a click function. So at click equals login. We're going to create a method called login. And on here we'll have our methods. We're going to have login And on this, we want to do window.open. I'm going to go figure out what options I can do. So JavaScript open centered window. Center a pop-up window on screen. So basically, I'm going to show a pop-up window that allows you to log in with Google using our backend app. And then once you're logged in, that window will close, pass the token to the client side, and then the client side will be authenticated. Whoa. Pop-up center. Width, height. I'm gonna use both of this. What is dual screen left being used for? Oh. Don't need it. Cool. Let's do that. So this will be, all these will be const. And we're not gonna add that variable. So width is window.innerWidth, or client width, or screen width. Where's screen coming from? Is screen a variable in the browser? Look at that. It gives you the resolution of the screen. That's pretty badass. Okay, so we grab the width and the height. We divide it by 2. This is just opening a 900 by 500 window. It's okay with me. We'll hard code it. And then we're just going to open that URL. So what we want to open is http://localhost 3030/auth/Google. And then the title is going to be login with Google. Scroll bars, yes. Width, height, top left. Cool. Let's see what happens. So when I click this button, it breaks. W is not defined. What? Refresh. Maximum line length. Come on. Let's do this. That. And that. And that. And that. Same thing here. That. That. So we could also just use oh, I see. It's one big long string. Let's convert this to a template literal. So that's going to be W, and that's going to be H, and that's going to be top, and that's going to be left. Oh, so we should define, so let's just say width is 900 and height is 500, and we'll do width and height. And I need a closing backtick. Refresh. What are you complaining about? Do not nest ternary expressions. Fuck you. Okay, let's see if it works. Click the button. A window opens and it refreshes. Cool. But here's what I want to happen. when the backend redirects back to the home page, we need to pass the token to the window that opened it. So let's do that. Let's close this window. So we'll close this, and then on the server side, our public folder, we do have this index.html. It's got a lot of stuff going on. We don't want to show all of this stuff. We basically just want to say logging in dot dot dot. But when this page loads, we'll do some basic stuff. Let's just log document.cookie. So log in with Google, redirect, logging in. If we look at the dev tools, there's our JSON web token, and we want that. There is a way with pop-up windows you can send a message back and forth. So you can do like window.opener.sendMessage. So let's look up JavaScript window.opener send message. Post message is what we want. Let's try it. Let's do window.postMessage document.cookie. And actually we want window.opener. If window.opener, meaning if something opened this window, in our case we know that something did because our front end opened that window, we will send that message to the window. Cool. So post message is a thing, and then we need to add an event listener to message on the client side. So over here on the login page, we'll do when the thing is mounted. We're going to listen for that message. So we'll do window add event listener message. And then receive message is just a function that takes in the message. What is this last parameter? False. Don't know, but let's just log the message over here. Cool. Let's try it again. So we're here. Clear logs. Clear logs. We log in with Google. It failed to execute message post. Failed to execute post message. 2 arguments required, but only 1 was present. Let's look at our post message and see what we're supposed to send. Does it need an object? Let's see. So on our back end, JavaScript window post message. Oh, you give the name. So I think the name here is, let's call it token. And let's close that window. Go. Invalid target origin. What? What are you asking for? Oh. Maybe that and then the target origin is null? I don't know. I really don't know. Let's try. What's the target origin? Oh, it just can be anything. Let's call it login. Close that window. Try again. I don't know what the target origin is. Post message target origin. Let's look on MSDN. Do you have an example? You don't have an example. Oh, we have to tell it where to go. So in this case, http://localhost 8080. That's what it wants. Okay, let's try again. Go. Hey, it worked. Okay, so let's pass in, instead of just doing this, let's pass an object that has a token property that's equal to the cookie dot split, and basically let's do token equals cookie dot split, split it on the equal sign and grab the first one. So if window.opener and token, then we're going to post the message with the token to that. Cool. Log in with Google. We've got our data.token. Beautiful. Cool. So on our client side, we'll basically say if message.data.token. So if it has a token, then we'll set the token on local storage. So local storage.token equals message.data.token. And let's just log local storage token. Okay. Log in with Google, and there's our token. That's great. Let's add the feathersjs client to our Vue.js app. because then we can start making requests to our backend. So feathersjs client. Is it on npm? Let's look at the package.json. Yeah, this is what we want. So on our client, we're going to npm install feathers.js client. Cool. So we installed that. Actually, there's a thing, Vue.js feathers, Vue feathers. Let's see what this does. How do we use it? So we bring in feathers. Do we need hooks? No. No way. Okay, we're going to do something very similar here. Okay, so basically we need to do all of this in our main.js. Actually, let's just create a, excuse me. Let's create a feathers.js file. We're going to do that. Instead of all these requires, and we're going to say down here, export default feathers. Cool. Do we need hooks? What are hooks? It's a little outdated though, because we can get feathers from here. So I'm going to say import feathers from that. Why is it complaining? Cool. Don't have the hooks, so let's not add them. Authentication client is this. So I'm going to import authentication from @feathers/authentication client and socket.io. The following, oh, I see. Feathers.socket.io. Ah, so I don't need either of these. I should be able to just do feathers.socket.io and then feathers.authentication. And then I do need socket.io client. Cool. That goes there. That goes there. Cool. authentication storage, window.local storage, and I do believe that it needs a specific name for the token instead of just token. So let's do this. If we look in the DevTools over here, document.cookie, it should be feathers-jwt. So on our client side, instead of setting token, I'm going to set that to be the token. Cool. Actually, we'll do this. So after we open the window, we're going to listen for the token. Store this in a variable. And then after we store the token, close the pop-up window. Cool. Yeah, and what I was looking at in Vue Feathers is I basically want to do this, but I'm not going to use Vue Feathers because I can do this pretty much on my own. Basically, I need an object with an install function. Like that. And so in main, I'm going to say Vue.use this weird thingy. Well, actually, I don't even need that. This. Okay, so whoa, that so I'm going to bring in feathers. So let's do right here. So import feathers from feathers. Cool. And then now, basically what this mixin is doing is every single component is going to get this $feathers object where it can actually access all of the things available to it from the Feathers client. So it has direct access to that. And then we'll also create some services. So we'll create a services file. So let's do import services from services, and we'll create a file in our source directory called services, and it's just going to export an object that has like a question service, and we'll bring in feathers, and this is going to be feathers dot get questions. Cool. So in our component, after setting the local storage token, we should be able to say this dot $services dot questions dot find all. Then we should get back some questions and then just log them to the console. What's up with my autocomplete? Weird. Okay, let's try it. Hard refresh. Log in with Google. Closes. Can't read property find of undefined. So questions, was it defined? It was. And we are saying in here, this dot $ services equals services. Let's look back at what they were doing in Vue Feathers. So let's see how this works. Oh, dot service, not dot get. Sorry. So in here, this should be dot service questions. Cool. So we log in. No authenticated token. Let's look at our local storage. Do we have a token? We do. Cleared it though. Let's see what the JSON web token should be called. If we look at authenticate, cookie feathers JWT, storage key feathers -JWT. I believe that's what we're calling it. Feathers -JWT. Yeah, instead of using sockets, let's use, well, no. Let's look at the authentication client code. Because we can see what it assumes local, like the token is. Storage key, feathers -JWT. Let's see how it uses that. Populate access token. App.get access token. Where's the app? Is there an app.set anywhere? Let's just find all the places where they're using access token.